Well, good late afternoon, almost evening. My name is Deb Delaney, and I'm a staff member of the South Dakota Humanities Council. We produce the annual Festival of Books, and we're headquartered in Brookings, South Dakota. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the SDHC, and we're very pleased that you joined us for our virtual 2021 event. We'd like to acknowledge, first and foremost, that this program comes to you from ground, which is the homeland of the Ochady-Shakoween, the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota people. The South Dakota Humanities Council honors and appreciates the Indigenous people who have the longest relationship to this place. Before the events get underway, I'd like to share some housekeeping details. We ask that you keep your microphone muted throughout the event to minimize background noise. If you'd like to ask questions or share comments with today's presenter, he's going to allow you to unmute yourself and look at you can start your videos. You can type questions in the chat on Zoom, which you can open by clicking on the conversation bubble at the bottom of your screen. And we'll keep an eye on that, both Mr. Holt and myself. We encourage you to buy books by our presenting authors at your local independent bookstore. The official festival booksellers are Books A Million and the Birdcage Bookstore and Mercantile in Rapid City. You can also buy directly from authors and publishers. Look for those links, which I will be placing in the chat. To help us continue to improve the festival, we'd appreciate your filling out an evaluation form. I'll share a link in the chat section on Zoom, and we'll also email you a link to the survey at the conclusion of the festival. Finally, you can help keep the festival free by making a tax-deductible donation to the South Dakota Humanities Council. Just visit our website, sdhumanities.org, and click the donate button. This festival would not be possible without the generous support of the numerous individuals and organizations who've already donated and are acknowledged on the back cover of the festival guide and on our website. And now on with the show. This program is titled The Unity in Community, Reading Groups and Writing Groups. Joseph Holt is author of the story collection Golden Heart Parade, which I have right here, and you aren't going to be able to see, it looks like. He grew up in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and studied at the University of South Dakota and the University of Southern Mississippi. Holt has taught at the University of Minnesota and South Dakota State University, and he now serves on the MFA faculty at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. His writing has appeared in The Sun and Prairie Schooner and has received an AWP Intro Journals Award. Take it away, Joseph.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks for having me, and thanks to all of you for showing up. I traveled back to South Dakota this week, and I'm back at my parents' place in Aberdeen right now, and there's a dog at my feet. I think it's rude in Zoom meetings to have a pet near the frame and not show it. So I'll show you my dog real quick. That's Lizzie. We gave her a treat so she would be quiet and not disruptive, but she's making a lot of slobbering noises as she's eating her treat. So if she gets loud for her partner, Rosie, I might have to mute myself and stop my video real quickly to shuffle them out of the room. Thanks for your patience. Today's session is called The Unity in Community, Reading Groups and Writing Groups. I'll be sharing a slideshow, but we won't be looking at the slideshow the entire time. In fact, this will be something of a participatory session. So later on, I might ask you to start your video and unmute yourself so you can converse if you're comfortable with it. I'll begin by sharing my screen and beginning the slideshow. I'm very glad to be taking part in the Festival of Books this year, so thanks to Deb, and to Jennifer, and to Anne, and everyone at the South Dakota Humanities Council for all the work they've put into this event and for their flexibility in adapting to another virtual environment. As I was brainstorming the topics I might discuss in regard to reading groups and writing groups, I came up with these four. Pandemic life, because our sense of community has changed a lot in the last year and a half. Second, artistic development and the way that communities can aid our growth as readers and writers. Third, the myth of the solitary writer, and I say myth because no one really writes alone. I also prepared this slideshow under the assumption that many who are here are writers in addition to readers. And then fourth, I thought we might talk about how we find our community as both readers and writers. But the more I reflected on this particular topic and the things I was going to say, everything I meant to say seemed somewhat like common knowledge. And I thought, what would a session on community be if I just lectured at you the whole time, likely telling you a bunch of things that you already know? So I thought, geez, I could just give you my thesis right away here at the beginning and save us all 45 minutes. My main point is that literary activities are better together. So thanks for attending the session. I'm just kidding. I do have more to add to that, but I can't say much more than simply communities can nurture us in our reading and in our writing. And you know this already because you're at the Festival of Books on a Sunday afternoon when you could be watching football or doing anything else. So literature is obviously important to you, and you have your own journey as a reader and a writer. And there's not much I can probably tell you that you don't already know. That's why I X'd out these four topics. However, I still will find a few things to say about them. As we progress in the next 45 minutes, as I noted, I might ask you to unmute yourselves, stop your video, and participate in some conversations. This will be a participatory session if you're comfortable with it. In fact, I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now with the slideshow and drop into the chat box a Google form I'll ask you to fill out so I can compile the results and share them with you later. We might take, I would say, 5 or 6 minutes on your own here to complete this Google form. I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see it, and I give you a quick overview here. In this form, I ask, essentially, what are your communities and how do you participate in your communities, whether they're online, in person, synchronous or asynchronous, let's say whether you meet at the same time or whether you just correspond with your reading communities and your writing communities. So there are a couple checkbox questions, but then some more open-ended questions, particularly what are the challenges and what are the rewards for book clubs and writing groups. And I'm particularly interested, since I'll share the results of this form in a spreadsheet, where do you learn about new opportunities for literary communities? It was this question where I really stumbled in trying to create a slideshow because I have my own sets of resources, but I wouldn't want to shuffle you strictly to them when you probably have more that you can share with the others in this session. So would you please now follow that link that I dropped into the chat box and take 5 or 6 minutes to complete this Google form. Does anyone have any questions before I just be quiet for a while? Great. As it notes here, this form won't collect your personal information and your answers will be anonymous, although I will share them with the other attendees in the session. I'm going to mute myself and look at my watch. When it's about 5:15 according to my watch, then I'll start talking again. And you can take your time and finish submitting the form when you're ready. I'll share my screen now with some of the responses. We're going to return to these responses rather than discuss them in depth right now. But if you click the See Previous Responses link after you submit your form, you'll be able to open this screen on your own computer. All right, I'm going to go back to the slideshow we were looking at earlier. And I noted those 4 topics I had in mind when I was brainstorming things to discuss for this session. Let's look at them now in brief. Don't let me be a lecturer here, but we wanted to discuss pandemic life, artistic development, the myth of the solitary writer, and finding your community. I do have a few thoughts on these subjects. And I feel I'm pretty well immersed in the literary world because it's how I make my career. So I've thought about the importance of community in my own writing. And in a nutshell, I probably would have given up if I didn't have people to share the struggle of writing with and the joys of reading. For that reason, I chose to pitch this article to Jennifer, or I'm sorry, this panel or this session to Jennifer Whitman when we were discussing the Festival of Books, because community seemed especially important in 2020 and 2021, where we were more isolated than usual. Reading and writing are solitary activities as it is. I'm fairly isolated as one who spends a lot of time sitting in silence, practicing the crafts of reading and writing, but I'm also fairly isolated as someone who lives in interior Alaska. But the pandemic reasserted just how important it is to be with people who share my values. Some points about pandemic life. We felt and we continue to feel isolated when we must socially distance ourselves. It's a responsible thing to do in many occasions, but it's also enforced upon us. For instance, the last couple of years at the Festival of Books, we haven't been able to gather in a shared physical space. And in turn, we've missed out on a lot of the incidental conversations we might have with our peers. As I noted, reading and writing are kind of isolating activities as it is, and you can't do them by committee, but the pandemic has further given us a sense of isolation. During the pandemic, I believe that many of us sought support from our communities. That might be our friends, our family, an academic community, a church community. It might be something as simple as a subreddit you follow. We're looking to converse with other people because we're alone more often than we are out in public with other people. Further, throughout the pandemic, we've all gotten a lot better at technology, and Zoom, we weren't even using, we weren't familiar with, we were still Skyping back in early 2020, but now we're all here gathered together in the same virtual space. So we've gotten better at finding our communities and connecting with them, given the challenges and the constraints of the pandemic. There was a fair learning curve, but by now, I believe even once we are out of the pandemic, and I kind of say that with air quotes, even once we're out of the pandemic, our world will have shifted to embrace digital technologies and digital conferencing much more. The next topic was artistic development. I believe that communities can advance our development because we're able to learn from one another and share our viewpoints. My own personal journey as a writer was that I pursued my MA at the University of North Dakota. I took a fiction workshop my first semester there, and I got beat up pretty badly because I just wasn't a very good writer, but I sure thought I was. And I kind of went out on my own and licked my wounds for a few years and just continued writing on my own where I could make my mistakes in private and I didn't have to share my work. And I still thought my work was quite good. Looking back, however, I recognize that I would have benefited. I would have saved myself a lot of years of bad writing if I had just joined a writer's group or submitted my work more frequently to friends and accepted their criticism as constructive. Reading is a journey, and it's nice when we are able to share it with others. Writing is a craft, and we get better with more practice and more feedback. For that reason, communities can really help us along as we're developing our literary sensibilities. Second, I say our ideas evaporate if we don't express them. Just like there are a lot of people with ideas for novels who never write novels, it's not worth all that much when we're just talking about it. Well, similarly with reading, you might read a book a week, but if you're not discussing, you might not be thinking as critically as you could be to reinforce those ideas from reading the novel. Working with other readers and writers gives you people to bounce ideas off of, and they make things more permanent. The next topic I wanted to discuss was the myth of the solitary writer. When I was pursuing my MA at the University of North Dakota, I worked with editorial theory and scholarly editing. I worked with some of the posthumous text of Ernest Hemingway because we had a former president of the Hemingway Society on faculty at the University of North Dakota. I studied the theory of the socialization of the text. I'll get to that with a third box here where I say publishing is a social process. The point is essentially that no literary work, from a chapbook to a National Book Award-winning novel, is the work of just one writer. It's really the work of the writer's entire community and their editorial team. Writing groups, I think, are painful because you get criticism on your work. You recognize that readers don't see things the way you saw them as a writer. However, writing groups provide accountability by giving you deadlines and a sense of readership. Feedback makes the work stronger, even when that feedback is hard to swallow at times. If you're able to locate a community who shares your literary sensibilities, they might help you progress your work and expand your vision. Finally, I say, although writing, the actual act of drafting and revising is often a solitary activity, publishing is a social process, and it's good to understand your words might be shaped by multiple hands when you want to share it with others. If you want to go a traditional publishing route, that is. There are agents, editors, publicists, and publishers. So we might accept that we are not geniuses and our work can be refined by going through a writer's room. That was one thing that hung me up right away, as I thought every word I wrote was so precious that to allow anyone else to, edit a line of mine would be to sully the whole act. Well, I got over that eventually, thank goodness. And finally, the next topic we were going to discuss is finding your community, but I can't really locate any resources that you might not know about already, or I might mislead you by giving you resources that matter for my own writing and reading journey. So I say, well, you're you. You've already probably advanced on your own career as a writer and reader according to what's most important to you. If I had any soft recommendations, and they're soft because I grade them out in the text boxes, I would encourage you to take risks, especially social risks. This is the same advice I give to my nephew, who's a sophomore in high school. Just go up and introduce yourself to a stranger. You might make a friend. For me, the social risk recently was joining Instagram, where I'd really avoided social media to this point in my life. It turns out, well, I kind of like it, and I've made some friends, and I've located some new books that are worth reading. And then I would say, if literature matters to you, then champion it, make it a priority in your life. However, any advice I have here under finding your community, again, it's just hard to say because I would never want to tell you what to do. I can only make some suggestions. And I figured doing this Google form and maybe talking amongst ourselves for a little bit might give you better ideas about the resources out there for advancing your journey in reading and writing. On this next slide is when we huddle up. I said it's real nice of you to not be watching football this afternoon, but come to the Festival of Books, and I still managed to put a Vikings image in the slideshow. I'm going to assign you into some breakout rooms where we'll discuss the following questions or talk about the following topics. Meanwhile, I'm going to bounce around between the Zoom breakout rooms, and I'm also going to take a minute to collect all of your Google form responses and put them into a spreadsheet I can drop in the chat box before we leave today. So here are the topics we would talk about when we are huddled up. Your literary community, your reading and writing goals, your strengths as an independent reader and writer, that is outside of any community, and next, the ways your work prospers with the input of others. These are just suggestions. However, if you wanted to follow up on any of those questions I put on the Google form, you can do that as well. I'm going to stop my screen right now and ask who's going to participate in the breakout rooms. I know sometimes in these sessions, and I'm very guilty of this myself, sometimes I'll be multitasking in the Zoom room. So if you think you're not going to participate, that's totally understandable, and we're glad you're here at all. But would you please give me a thumbs up? And depending on how many thumbs up we get for those who will be participating in the breakout rooms, I'll know whether we want to go with maybe 2 or 3 rooms. Jody, congratulations on your book. I was glad to see your name in this room.
Joe, do you want to explain how to give a thumbs up? There might not be everyone here that knows how to do that.
Thank you, Deb. Let's actually, I was kind of lost track of how many thumbs we had anyway. Down at the bottom of your screen, your Zoom screen, you'll see a button for reactions. It has a little smiley face with a plus on there. If you click the reactions button, you'll see a thumbs up there and you can give it. So now if you would be willing to join a room, give me a thumbs up. Okay, I saw 5 thumbs up, and I don't know if we ought to go into our own rooms for that. If you would be willing to talk about some of these questions, maybe we'll just talk as a group right now. I tell you what, I'm going to assign the rooms manually. Bear with me here for just a moment. And once we get in your rooms, I'm then going to drop the PDF of the slideshow if you'd like to open that and see the questions I suggested. Okay, I'm opening the rooms. I'm going to name one room corn and soybeans, and the second room cattle. So you'll get an invitation to join a room, and I'll see you in your rooms in just a moment. thanks so much for participating in those breakout rooms. And it bought me a little time to create the spreadsheet I'll share from your Google form responses. It also gave me time to run downstairs and put the dogs outside. In the chat box now, I'm going to once again drop the PDF of the slideshow in case you weren't able to save it or in case that disappeared once you joined your breakout room or left your breakout room. And I'm also going to drop the PDF of our responses. From the Google form. I'll share my screen here real quickly so we can just follow up on the responses. Sorry, I have too many windows open. Here then is the spreadsheet. Most of us responded that you do belong to a group that has some structure to it. Half of our responses said that you've met together in person or via Zoom. Real briefly, we're at 5:45 right now, and we probably have about 5 minutes remaining in our time. Real briefly, would someone want to explain about your literary group during the pandemic?
Well, I can jump in if you want, Joe, just to say that I have a book club that I've been meeting with for almost 25 years that has kind of fallen apart, I think, temporarily during the pandemic because some members did not want to meet using technology. And we had all these grand ideas about, backyard gatherings when it was nice enough that just kind of never panned out. So I'm hopeful that we'll still get back together. But I did join a sort of temporary Zoom book club that was a completely separate group that I enjoyed quite a bit. So it's not a bad way to meet for a small group of people.
Thank you. It sounds like there's some politics and like disagreements in how to meet with your longstanding book club during the.
Yeah, I think that just discomfort and busyness. So
we have a widespread of the type of events we've attended since the pandemic has begun. There is just no shortage of literary readings and festivals and so on that we can attend on any given night. The hardest thing is not feeling fatigued from doing everything you want to do. You have to say no to a lot of opportunities. Going down, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I had mentioned in the breakout session that I'm in a book group of 2. And so we Zoom about every 10 days, usually for about 3 hours. So it's a pretty intensive discussion. And I just wonder if it isn't easier during the pandemic to manage a smaller group than a larger one.
Yeah.
So, for those that are their members are falling away, maybe just preserve a group with a few people. Because this is a good friend of mine, but we have some really funny and intense conversations, and it's worked out pretty well. He lives outside of Boston, so it wouldn't really be possible to do this without the technology.
I found that with my book club called the Quarantine Book Club, there were just not really disagreements, but no one wanted to take charge and make decisions and make a decision that not everyone cared about, but not everyone cared enough to even express their preferences. So there was a lot of waffling and avoiding decisions. So a book club of 2 would help you bypass that problem.
Yeah, we have a reading list that will take us to the grave, but we don't have trouble deciding what to read. So,
well, I feel lucky that some people from my literary community are here in this particular session. It's nice to see you again and to be part of the South Dakota Festival of Books, where we were able to kind of celebrate local and regional stuff. Here on my final slide, I include a poem from Michael Claber Diggs, his recent collection, Worldly Things, and something Chris Bondrachek. Did I pronounce that correctly? Jennifer, you could tell me.
I heard him say it this morning and I already can't remember, but the emphasis is a little different. It's like Vondrachek or something. Vondrachek.
Okay. In the USD Arts and Sciences newsletter, Chris Vondrachek said, "Yes, we are often far from people," meaning we in South Dakota, "but we have the space to document our lives, to write down our stories, and when we're ready to come out from the winter of our writing group, to share them with our neighbors." Here he's saying we've created these writing groups, especially during the pandemic, and soon it will be time to share our work. The South Dakota Humanities Council is a wonderful resource for creating your literary community. We have some people in this room who are outside of the state, and I don't think Jennifer would kick you out of this Festival of Books if she knew that. The South Dakota Humanities Council features Jennifer, maybe do you want to give a quick overview, or Deb, of all the programs? I'm afraid I'm going to miss something because I've been out of the loop for a few years beyond the Festival of Books. We have One Book South Dakota.
Okay, we do have the Speakers Bureau, where we have host organizations will invite a Speakers Bureau speaker to have some quality humanities program at their facility, their venue. We have the One Book, which all of South Dakota is encouraged to read, and discussions on those. We have a lending library, what we call Book Club to Go, that you can borrow books and get together with friends, family, and have a discussion around maybe a classic or anything else that we have there. Those are the three main programming things that we have for the state. Jennifer, you want to jump in and add anything else there?
I suppose the next part would be the Young Readers Program, which is sort of has its own adjunct to the Young Readers Festival and the Young Readers One Book. That started in 2014, where we give books to third graders or second going into third graders in the state. And those are books that are theirs to keep. Then we bring the author illustrator in. And it's not programming exactly, but our grants program supports lectures and research projects and all sorts of things that always ultimately end up in a program. So many of those are literary based.
I found my writing community mainly through universities and through the Humanities Council. But then when we were in our breakout rooms, I heard some people say that you're kind of outside of traditional literary communities and not sure where to begin. Well, the Humanities Council might be a good place to browse and locate the resources where you can create your own book club, your own writing group. You can find people with similar interests. The final thing I had on the slideshow is any questions or comments, but we are running a bit short on time. If Deb's going to kick us out fairly soon,
you could go till 6 if you want to.
Well, I would just like to say it's so great to see people of my actual community here, and it's wonderful that we're able to gather in this virtual spaces even when we're far apart.
I've got to go, but I'm going to make two quick personal remarks. Jody, why don't you email sometime and let's go get coffee? And Joe, it's good to see you. Why don't we Zoom sometime? I picked up your book. It came about a week ago. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. So. Oh,
I'll send you a signed book plate so you can make it into a signed copy and some stickers and magnets and other junk. Great.
But yeah, let's talk or Zoom or something.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Okay. See everybody.
Bye. All right. I just wanted to say how much I'm enjoying your book. I'm loving it. Your sense of humor is dry and very subtle, and it just makes me laugh. It's really good. I enjoy it. My favorite chapter is Charges.
Oh, thank you.
I think I remember you telling me, didn't you have a lawn service at one time?
Well, I worked for the highway department, and
Okay,
so I was out on the roads quite often, like on these desolate highways, just driving around, passing time. And that inspired the story for sure.
very good. Any other last comments before I take us out? Well, this has been fun. It's been fun to reconnect, and I see other connections like Joe's already mentioned. That's wonderful. So on behalf of the South Dakota Humanities Council, I thank you to Joe Holt for sharing his expertise with us. And thanks to all of you in the Zoom audience for attending the event. Don't forget to visit our website, sdbookfestival.com/virtual for more great programming. Oh, we're getting really close to done. We got a few things this week yet in the evening too, so come and look at that. We still have a few things, so thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your weekend. Thank you. Bye.